Hello everybody and welcome back for another video. Today we're going to be talking about some of these walled or fortified cities and just the fact that a lot of them seem to be buried, and I think this might have been due to an earlier event that isn't in our history books. So let's get started now. Our focus here today is primarily going to be on the Netherlands, and in the northern parts of the country there's a couple of sites I want to touch upon. And the first one is in the city of Groningen, which we are told was an important trade center. And in the 13th century, the inhabitants built a city wall to underline its authority. But this is just an older map showing what it may have looked like in the past, but it definitely does not look like that in our present. But there have been some more recent archaeological excavations in the center of the city, in the city square, which was used as a market at one point. But when you start looking into it, they talk about how this market, how over the years, the market has moved higher and higher. The levels of the past are therefore literally still below the current market. So they're talking about buried levels once again. So I was very interested in this particular archaeological excavation, and they also came across medieval pavement consisting of thousands of cobblestones and a few chunks of brick. And this one piqued my interest as well. This well that they came across, archaeologists encounter hundreds of years old well, and they don't exactly know the date of origin for that well, but they noticed that it actually shows up on some of these older maps, in particular this one from 1643, and we're going to dig into that map a little bit. But I just wanted to show you a few more pictures of them unearthing this well. And here's a close-up, and you can see the well in the foreground here. But this particular image is a good one. Here you can see the well, and the present grade is clearly established here. And if you take a look at this map from 1643, and again, the old maps, we take them with a little bit of grain of salt, but interestingly, this particular well is actually, a portion of it are above grade, and you can just see it on this map. So that is interesting. So what happened in between 1643 and what we're seeing in our present day, that doesn't seem to be recorded. Now, the dating of these maps, I think that these may be older, but that's for a future video. But again, just a blown up version of that same map. But interesting nonetheless. And they also came across portions of a wall from an old guardhouse, I believe. And as well, they find a lot of artifacts, and we're going to get back to these artifacts towards the end of the video. But yeah, so that's this site. Now, there's actually another site that is a little over 30 miles to the west of this particular site, and it's in a different city, obviously, and I'm not going to try to pronounce that. But here's another older depiction of what this city used to look like, and it of course looks a lot different in our present, but there do seem to be some elements that line up with this older map. But our focus is actually going to be on another excavation that's happening in this city, and they're finding a lot of these buried features, but in this city they're referring to them as subsurface features, so they were intentionally below grade. But I think we're looking at the same phenomenon amongst both these sites. And that's just my view. And just some more images of some of the things they're finding in this particular site. And they've found, brick floors as well. And again, another old map. And I don't know the dating of this map, but they're saying in the article that I came across, the original location of this original structure, it was like a weighing station. So there's a canal that comes very close to this location, and the boats would dock and they would weigh their cargo. So that structure, they're saying the original one, which can be seen on old maps, was located about 20 meters east of the current building, so a little over 60 feet. So again, the maps seem to have some accuracy again, which is interesting. But I think both these sites, the reason why portions of them are buried is I think there was some event not in our history books. And when you look at the holdings of the East and West Dutch India Company, the light green is the East India Company, dark is the West India Company. But I talked about, the Dutch colonial city of Batavia, and it is largely buried, and we're told it was intentionally buried in, I think, 1809. But I think it's the similar event that binds these locations. And when you look at the American colonies, initially there was this Dutch colony called New Amsterdam, and the remains of that colony can be found buried below New York. New York City was once New Amsterdam. And I think, again, we're dealing with some event, but it's explained away as land reclamation or raising of street levels. So I think even though we're dealing with all these diverse regions, I think we're looking at a similar event. And speaking of these walled cities, these fortified cities that are buried along the east coast of North America, we talked about New Amsterdam. Well, to the south you have Charleston, this walled city, and we're told it was intentionally buried and built on top of. So just, again, this early colonial period, something seems to have happened. And I talked about this recent development, 2009 approximately. The academics discovered that it was during the early colonial period that parts of the eastern United States were drowned in mud. And I've gone into that in previous videos, but just more evidence that something happened on a very large scale. Now, getting back to that first site I talked about, Groningen, and the artifacts, there's another site that actually has artifacts that are linked to this particular city, and that's going to take us back to Jamestown on the east coast of the United States. This colonial era fort that was rediscovered in the 1990s, long thought to actually have disappeared in the waters of the James River. So you have this early colonial period site, once again, buried, and during excavations they have uncovered a lot of interesting artifacts, and one of them was this token which has links to Groningen, and they found about 17 of these interesting tokens which has that city as their point of origin. And I think they even took an x-ray of one of these tokens from I or J590. An interesting find, because they don't find a lot of these coins or tokens, but they found about 17 of these at Jamestown. And again, at both locations, they're buried. It's just, things keep building up. So I just wanted to mention that, and an interesting token, actually, just visually. But another find at James Fort that they found was, speaking of these double-headed eagles, they found, I think, over 20 of these types of token, which they're referring to as Elizabethan tokens, with, again, these double-headed eagle. And I think the tokens say God save the Queen on them. So just another interesting find. So yeah, some interesting artifacts associated with some of these sites. And this double-headed eagle does seem to be prevalent during the periods in question here. And the double-headed eagle is often seen in heraldic imagery throughout Europe, and specifically associated with the city of Groningen. A black eagle is central to the city's coat of arms. And even in Imperial Russia, the double-headed eagle is associated with the Tsars of Russia as well. In the 15th century, a double-headed eagle became a symbol of Russian Tsars. And this is just, there's been a lot of archaeology in Moscow, and archaeologists have found some of these double-headed eagle tiles that they are attempting to restore, or probably have restored. And this particular symbol is definitely widespread, so just thought I would mention that here at the end. So I think that's about all I got for you today, and I think I'll leave it here. But I do want to give a big shout out to my channel members, and also I do want to give a shout out to my patrons. Thank you for all your help and support, greatly appreciated. So thank you very much. So until next time, take care. Bye.